Shalom Aleichem Rabbi Isai. We're holding Parashas Vayigash, and it's an important parasha because it's really the end, basically the end of the saga of what Chazal called the Rugzoi Shel Yosef. Rashi quoted it in Parashas Vayeshev. Kaftal of Rugzoi Shel Yosef. This whole Roigez of Yosef, where he the whole episode of, the brothers and, getting rid of him and him going to Mitzrayim. It comes to a completion over here, and Yosef reveals himself to his brothers, and there is a lot to say. This is a very packed sugya. Even on the surface, it's very packed. But we have to understand that the Torah is everything about Judaism, okay, is here. It's all here. And, the Hemshech HaDoros throughout Nach, throughout, Heinte Getog, what we're living through now. Everything is here. It's all here. It's embedded in these quote-unquote stories that we read through in the Chumash. The whole Metzias of Klal Yisrael, all the nature of Klal Yisrael is all here. We are, this is the Shvatim, this is Klal Yisrael, the 12 Shvatim. Jews throughout the Doros, and as we know of it today, all are made up of these koiches, what we see in the Torah. Everything in Nach, everything in the Hemshech HaDoros is an extrapolation of the quote-unquote stories that we have in the Torah Kedosha. It's like Ki'ilu what's the word I'm looking for? Like everything's taken from here. Everything's extrapolated from these stories. I don't know how to say it in a better way, but that's basically what the Torah is all about. It speaks about the zach, the metzias of the thing, okay, and it's presented to us in story form. But we have to understand that these are very, very high and deep concepts, very high, very deep. So, until we get to Yaakov, Yaakov Ubanov, in the Shvatim, in the Torah, right? We have Avram, Yitzchak. So we have Avram being Avram, different than the whole world. And then we have his two kids, Yitzchak and Yishmael. There's always a birur going on. There's always a, selection, right? There's Yitzchak over Yishmael. And then when Yitzchak comes along, there's Yaakov and Esav, and then there's Yaakov and Lavan, and then something weird happens after. There's also Rachel and Leah. This is a very big sugya over here, Rachel and Leah. There's not one good one, one bad one. Chas v'shalom, I'm not saying that, but we're going to quote a Maimer Chazal, which says an interesting thing. Yaakov was married to Rachel, and Leah, Ki'ilu, was married not to Yaakov, she was married to Yisrael. Hazoi Zogen Chazal. Interesting stuff. There's two things. But already when that happens, it's already within the Klal Yisrael, within Yaakov. All the other birurim, all the other selections was good and evil, separating the good from the evil, kiviyachol, right? So now within Yaakov, within Klal Yisrael, we have Rachel, we have Leah. We have the B'nai Leah and the B'nai Rachel. And you see, time and time again, how the Torah is contrasting the two. The beginning of Parashas Vayeshev, we speak about Yosef. Yosef is the Toldos of Yaakov. Yaakov, right? That Michtav Melio quotes Chazal, and he says that Rachel was married to Yaakov, and the Toldos of Yaakov is Yosef. It's Pashup Pshat. He's the Bechor of Yaakov. Okay? And the whole story with Yosef and the brothers, and they didn't like it. Very good. And then we have, Ruvain. Ruvain is a very interesting character, also here in Vayigash, and then in Miketz we have him again. Yosef, Ruvain is the Bechor of Leah, and he's trying to do things the right way. He was not happy with the decision, quote unquote, of the brothers to get rid of Yosef, and he's trying to correct things. Keep that in mind. He's trying to correct things. We'll get back to this idea, but that's Ruvain. And then, okay, they get rid of him. They sell him to Mitzrayim. Very nice. And then the Torah tells us a story about Yehuda, and this was one of Yehuda's big mistakes. He fixed up his mistakes. He didn't kill his daughter-in-law. Tzadka mimeni, and that's a big shvach for Yehuda. But Lamaisa, this story is an uncomfortable story for Yehuda. This is a mistake. And we know the outcome of this mistake. Very interesting how this shidduch ultimately brings forth Mashiach. It's very interesting. Right? Brings forth Melech HaMashiach. And immediately after that, again, look at the contrast. Back in Vayigash, we speak about Yosef and his big nisoyin, which he passed with flying colors. Right? He passed with flying colors. So we have, quote unquote, a not so pretty picture about Yehuda. And then we jump into Yosef, and Yosef had this terrible nisayon, and he was clean. And he did it. He mastered that. He didn't fall into that Aveira. And then we have the story of the Saramashkim, which connects us to Parshas Miketz. And the Saramashkim, right, benefited from Yosef, and Yosef asked him to remember him. And Chazal tell us, and that was already in the beginning of last week's parasha, the end of Vayigash. Chazal tell us that Yosef made a mistake. Okay? Yosef made a mistake. How big of a mistake? 2 words. Right? Im Zochar, he said Zochar is a Chartani, something like this. Right? Ki im zechartani itcha. Right? Shtei shonim. V'lezachar sar mashkim v'ishkacheu l'achar mekan. Shtel yez l'zichar huskak liyez osir shtei shonim. Shenemar ashrei gevel shaloi whatever. So why 2 years? Yeah. So I think why 2 years? I remember somebody saying, Im Zochar Zechartani. Im Zechartani. I thought it was a double lashon, but it wasn't. Yeah, Zechartani v'hiskartani el para. Okay, maybe I heard such a pshat that was the 2 words that he said, and he got 2 years punished. So Yosef made a tiny little mistake, and sit in jail for 2 years. So he fixed that mistake. And then throughout the Miketz, Yosef is very careful. This already, Victor Miller points that out. Everything is, Me'ez Hashem, and has nothing to do with us, and not me. I am not poiter any chaloimus, and moiridik misgaber on his yitzarim for covet, and whatever you want to call that. And then the whole story. And then, right, the whole story with the brothers. Yosef's playing a trick on them. And you have to understand that, right, Yehuda. So, and we see over here, after they really get messed over, and Yosef tells them, don't come back without this, right? So again, we see the confrontation or a birur between Ruvain and Yehuda. Ruvain tries to, fix up this problem, and he talks to his father, but his father doesn't go for it. And Yehuda is able to convince Yaakov. And Yehuda is ki'ilu taking the the princehood of the Bnei Leah. And obviously in this week's parasha, when we get to Vayigash, we see Vayigash of Yehuda. Yehuda is the one. Yehuda is now going to be the one that's going to approach Yosef. But if we follow the story, just put ourselves in their shoes a little bit, or in Yehuda's shoes a little bit, this was an insane story. It's insane. You couldn't, right? I have a Rebbe, he's a big Talmud Chacham, a massive Talmud Chacham, but he's a cold guy. Why I say he's a cold guy? And anytime I'm feeling a little bit down, I try to, at least in those days when I used to live in Eretz Yisrael, I tried to, go and give shalom to him. When I left the kollel and, I went to a different kollel, I used to go and give shalom to him because I knew that there's only one person that can get me out of my rut. It was this Rebbe. Why? Because every time I go over to him and I say to him, Rebbe, how you doing? He tells me, I've been worse. It could always get worse. That's what he told me. And I said to him, why the long face? Why like this? He's like, what do you mean? What's the difference between an optimist and a pessimist? He says, a pessimist says it can never get worse. And an optimist says it could always be worse. So he says he's very optimistic, very happy fellow. But that's his personality, that's great. And it always puts me in a good mood, Baruch Hashem. But it's hard to imagine how much worse this story could have gotten for Yehuda. I mean, Yehuda gave up his Olam Haba as a guarantee to bring back his younger brother for his father. And his father is a Zokin, Yankiv Avinu. The whole world is crumbling down on Yehuda right now. Before these words of Vayigash of Yehuda, the whole world is crumbling. It couldn't have gotten worse. Everything that could have went bad, went sour. Okay? We know the happy ending at the end, but you have to imagine, it can't get any worse. I mean, this is the worst it could possibly be. And we have to internalize that. Yehuda, time and time again, throughout the mention of his name, throughout the Torah, it's always in a negative way, or in not such a good way. Even when he was born, right? Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. But it was a surprise. It was against, all odds, right? Doesn't make sense. And with these mistakes and with these unfortunate happenings, this is what Adarabba, we'll soon see, it gives him koyach to approach Yosef, because it all these mistakes, they don't add up. So, okay, that was just a quick scan of all these four parashas really, up until where we're up to. Now, I want to share with you what the Michtav Eliyahu says in Parashas Vayeshev. I think it's even Parashas Vayetze. Right? He discusses the relationship Yaakov had with Rachel and Leah, and he discusses it al pi Chazal. Now, it's a Chazal that you probably will never come across, but he quotes it, and I always thought that this piece was beyond capabilities of understanding, and it is. It's Sisrei Torah for sure. But I think it helps us build a Yesod. And to be totally honest, I think that's why he said it over. He wasn't trying to impress anybody with his Mar Mekaymes in Torah Sanister. That wasn't the point of the Sefer. He said it over in Yeshivas Panovich, and he said it over to Bachram in Yeshiva that don't learn, these Sfarim from Sifrei Emes, whatever. And I think it's going to help us build a Yesod. He says, we mentioned this in the beginning. He says that Kol Atzmoi Shel Yaakov Lo Ovad Ela B'Rachel, and Chazal say that Rachel was married to Yaakov, which is keneged the Olam HaTachtoin, this world, okay? And Leah, and Rachel is called in the Torah Yefas Toyar V'Yefas Mare. She was Yefas Toyer, Yefas Mara. And that's connected this world, that's what he says. And we know that Yosef is her son, and Yosef represents Yoifi, okay? Benois Tzada Leishur, they wanted to see the beauty of Yosef. Rabbi Yochanan says, Anam Shufra de Yosef, he was a beautiful person. So Yosef represents beauty. Rachel represents beauty, and that, shockingly, Al Pi Chazal, represents this world. The Olam HaTachtoin, he calls. Ve'ene le rakois. Chazal say that's Keneged Olam the Iskasya, the hidden world. The world that is not seen, not perceived, not understood. Nothing too, glamorous. And the Yesod basically is, and this I heard already, not quoted by the Mechtav Melio, I heard this from my Rebbe, Rav Loichter Shlita, and he says that concept of the Olam Iskasya, this hidden world, means that Klal Yisrael is rooted above this world, above the rules and regulations of this world, above emes and sheker, above, not with the rules, quote unquote, of what's right and what's wrong, above, somewhere else. It is rooted in a different place that's beyond hasaga, beyond right and wrong, beyond. And that is Leah, who's married not to Yaakov, but to Yisrael. That's what he says. That's what he says. And it's a pella, if you go through the psukim, all throughout these parashas, sometimes the Torah refers to Yaakov as Yaakov, sometimes it's Yisrael, sometimes he speaks to Yosef like this, and sometimes he speaks to Yosef like that, with this name, with that name. It is very interesting. You can do a lot with this one Yesod. But now we have to take it down a generation. Now we have the B'nai Leah and the B'nai Rachel. So Leah has a Bechor, Reuven. A Bechor, Reuven. And in these two instances where Reuven, quote unquote, challenges or makes an attempt to be to be the Bechor, to be the spokesman for the B'nai Leah, in both times he is overturned by Yehuda. Yehuda was the fourth one. He was the fourth child. And I think that teaches us something. Yehuda, apam oides Hashem, he was a surprise. The Imais, Leah and Rachel both, or Leah, we see in Chazal, Rashi brings it, that Leah made a cheshbon. There's 4 wives. So everybody's going to have 3 kids, and that's going to be the Shvatim. There's going to be 12 Shvatim. Yehuda was a surprise. Yehuda was not supposed to happen. It was a chiddush. It was not expected. It came from above. Yoiser michelki. Something I wasn't thinking of. Something that was like a surprise. Whoa, where did that come from? This is embedded in his personality. I don't like using the word personality, but it comes out. There's a lack of vocabulary. But it's embedded in his neshama, in his atzmius. That's what he is. Yehuda is the representation of aboveness, is not rooted in the world that you see in front of you that makes sense. 3 times 4 is 12. No, doesn't make sense. He represents this. Yehuda can emerge as Yehuda, as the Gadol Ador, as a Yehudi, from a place where you wouldn't guess in a million years. From an absolute mistake. From the worst case scenario. That's where Yehuda can emerge from. This is who he is. This is embedded in his creation. The worst case scenario, all the mistakes. Yehuda is above mistakes. He can do the Yehuda and Tamar. He can, He can sell Yosef. It was a mistake, right? Reuven wanted to fix the mistake. He wanted to be the correct one. No. B'nai Leah, that's not the anhaga of the B'nai Leah. The B'nai Leah are above this realm of what's right and wrong. Again, there's no heta to do wrong. Absolutely not. But a Jew can emerge from the darkest places, can become the greatest person in the world from the darkest places, from mistakes. Yosef, which represents Yefas Toyar v'Yefas Mara, a beautiful sight, a perfection, fixing the hair, always making sure he's well organized. Perfection is the midah, quote unquote, of Yosef. That's why he overcame the terrible nisayon of Eshes Potifar, and that little tiny nisayon that he had with the Sarah Mashkim. He was punished for 2 years in jail until he eradicated the Lev HaEven from his heart. Now he has a Lev Basar. He knows that everything is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's no room for mistakes by Yosef. You can't make any mistakes by Yosef. That doesn't go. And Yehuda, who's coming from the worst case scenario, in Miketz, his life is over. He can't go back to his father. He lost his Olam Haba. And Gufa from this terrible place to be, Vayigash love Yehuda. Yehuda makes Yosef melts his heart. He melts Yosef with the koyach of being able to emerge from this place of total loss. Total loss. That is the confrontation over here. Yehuda approaches his brother, he approaches Yosef, and Yosef melts down. Yosef mamash melts down. This is the two koiches of Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael is made up of a Yaakov and a Yisrael. These are our two koiches. There is the musig of being an Eved Hashem in the best way possible, doing everything beautifully, Yefas Torah v'Yefas Mar, the Olam HaTachton, but also knowing that there's nothing that can stop a Jew from being a Jew. Even in the worst case scenarios, we are rooted in a place which is not seen, which is above all realities, and that allows and gives hope and strength to every Yid to go forward, and that's where we come from. This is our story. Now, throughout Nach, this Yesod is very, very clear. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I'm not a big bucky in Nach, but I have a few rayas I can share with you, but we'll leave it at this. You have to understand that this is the story that the Torah is telling us about Yosef and Yehuda. These are the two main koiches of the Klal Yisrael coming from Rachel and Leah, the B'nai Leah and the B'nai Rachel. I hope that was confusing enough for you. Everybody should have a wonderful day and a good Shabbos.